Halloween may be over, but let's stay in the spirit just a little longer.
Turning pages, keep turning those pages. Time flies when you've been reading for ages.
I can't get my whole hat in the frame, it's too tall. Hi, I'm Vanessa, and it's time to talk about the books I read in October, or as the cool kids here on Booktube call it, Sbooktober. I actually filmed my thoughts on the first two books earlier in the month, so let's just pop those in. First book I read during Sbooktober was Wedding Night by Sophie Kinsella. And Sophie Kinsella never disappoints. This book was so funny. It's about a woman who is disappointed when her boyfriend doesn't propose, so she breaks up with him. And then her ex from 15 years ago shows up out of the blue and decides that she's the love of his life and they should have gotten married back when they were 18 years old. And she's like, yeah, that's a good idea because I totally want to be married. And then her sister finds out that she's going to do this and she's like, no, you're crazy and impulsive and I'm going to stop you. So she teams up with the ex-boyfriend who came into town's best man in the wedding. And the two of them try and stop them from ruining their lives, essentially. Or what they feel is ruining their lives. Anyway, it is just full of wacky hilarity and just generally a good time. I do think there was one section where like the hijinks were getting a little bit like ridiculous. It wasn't that they were ridiculous, it was more that they were just going on for too long because like this is kind of a long book for a contemporary rom-com. And I just felt like it was dragged on a little bit longer than it needed to be, where I was just kind of like, okay, like, I get it. It was funny the first few times, but then you're just kind of like, okay. And at that point, I was honestly more interested in the sisters storyline, since it does switch perspectives between the two sisters. And the sister was kind of having her own sort of romance going on, and I was kind of like more curious about what was going on with her than with, I think, who is supposed to be the main character. But yeah, I really loved the book. I don't have that much else to say about it except for like, it was really fun. And then I decided to go with Lords of Misrule over The Libromancer, mostly because I was going to the beach and this is a very small book to pack. But I really, really enjoyed this book. It was my favorite so far in the series. This is book 5 in the Morganville Vampires. And I'm actually not going to say any more about it here because I'm doing a whole video on the Morganville Vampire series as I read them all. And I'll go into more detail about each book there because they're going to be spoilers. And that video will be out at some point. There are 16 books in the series. I've only read 5. Don't rush me. Interesting stuff, huh? Next, I read Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So first off, I apparently forgot to read the inside jacket, so I was very excited to find out what the title meant. The main character's name is Laszlo Strange, and he's considered a dreamer because he's obsessed with this mythical, legendary city that disappeared a long time ago. I can't really decide if I think that's a really cool like tie-in to the title, or if the title loses a bit of its mystery and intrigue now that I know it's like literally a nickname of the main character. Which is kind of how I felt about the whole book. Conflicted. Well, mostly annoyed with a side of bored, but like at some points conflicted. Here's the thing, Laini Taylor's writing has the most beautiful, poetic moments that are just magical and delightful. Laini Taylor knows her descriptions. Wow. Just wow. But the story and the characters and the ending. Let's start with the characters. Book's heavy, I'm gonna put it down. Or I can wave around the dust jacket. Laszlo works in the library, and over many years he spent his free time researching the mythical lost city, and he has a bunch of books filled with his research. And then one day, this rich jerk of a dude comes into the library and demands that Laszlo give him his books. The books are Laszlo's personal property. They don't actually belong to the library, but his boss tells him he has to take the books to that guy because that guy's an important person. And Laszlo is very unhappy about this, but here's the thing. After being upset for like 2 seconds, he just gives away his life's work. Really? If someone tried to take my life's work from me, you know what I'd do? I'd go take my stuff, I'd hide it somewhere. And when the jerk comes around publicly demanding why I didn't give him the stuff, I would lie and say, I did give it to you. What, did you lose it? It would be his word against mine. Sure, I'd probably get in trouble, but at least I'd have the satisfaction of knowing I didn't just hand over my life's work. Anyway, so that's my problem with Laszlo. And I really didn't care all that much for the other characters either. I especially found the Godspawn characters irritating. Honestly skimmed a lot of their chapters. Actually skimmed several chapters throughout several points in this book because nothing was really happening. And then the ending, losing my hat, being too vigorous. I'm not going to spoil anything, don't worry, but like, I kind of guessed the plot twist several chapters before it happened, and I was just really hoping it wouldn't be true, and that it wouldn't turn out to be so, I hate to say this, but cliche. But it was. And you know, I might have accepted it if everything had wrapped up nicely and I could just move on with my life. But this wasn't a standalone, as I thought. It's actually a duology, so it ended on this cliffhanger, setting up for a sequel that I will not be reading. I realize this has all sounded very negative, but I honestly enjoyed myself for reading the majority of the book. There was a romance, which was fine, except for the excessive chapter that was literally just them kissing. He kept describing her lips as a plump fruit, which grossed me out a little bit. Don't believe me? Page 443. Her lips. Ever so slightly they parted. The bottom one, voluptuous as a dew-bright fruit, parted from its fellow for him. And it was the most enticing thing he'd ever seen. That's like not the only time he called them fruit, and ew. The ending honestly just ruined the book for me. Let's put this down. Fix my hat. That's it. Okay. The final book I read for Sbooktober was Demigods and Magicians by Rick Riordan. This is a collection of three This was a collection of 3 short stories where Percy Jackson and Annabeth meet Sadie and Carter from the Kane Chronicles series. I love both the Percy Jackson series and the Kane Chronicles series, so seeing them meet and fight alongside each other was just so much fun. I laughed so much. It was the perfect thing for me to read after Strange the Dreamer, which was pretty serious. So the first of the short stories was my least favorite. It was from Carter's point of view, and in the Kane Chronicles, losing my hat again. I really prefer Sadie's point of view just because she's a lot more fun and funny. Carter is like the serious, smart one. Also, it was just Carter and Percy in this book, and they spent most of the time being suspicious of each other. I'm just like, boys, stop being dumb. You're on the same side. Like my hat, I swear. Do I have to take this off? Then in the second story, Annabeth and Sadie meet and they become instant friends, and it is fantastic. The two of them are so cute together, and the plot really gets going in this one. All 3 stories go in chronological order, so you really do need to read them that way. It's more like a 190-page novella than 3 separate short stories. It's just in 3 parts with 3 different point of views. And it just keeps getting better because the final one is from Percy's point of view. And it's also the action-packed finale. It's so good and funny. And I think the villain was the perfect choice because it's based on the mythology from a time when somebody tried to combine the Egyptians and Greek gods so they could rule over them all. It was just all so good. The really sad part was knowing that obviously Percy Jackson, Annabeth, Sadie, and Carter don't get to spend a whole lot of time together and become best friends because they each have their own separate series and end up parting ways. But maybe there'll be an Infinity Wars type giant crossover in Rick Riordan's universe where everyone would come together. That would be so much fun. So these are the books I read in October. Let me know the best book that you read in October in the comments. I'd love to chat. And if you'd like to hit the like button or even the subscribe button, that would make me so happy. I'm slowly creeping my way up to 500 subscribers. And I'll see you soon. Bye! Alright, hat. When flower just like flew across the room. Oh my gosh.